Hey everybody, this is BJ with 448. This is the season finale of the Family Tree interview series. We got my man Larry Mercado here. Larry Mercado is the
Mhm.
CEO of Biologix, which is a CBD recovery company. They make products geared towards athletes. Um, so we just spent 15 minutes on the IG Live, Larry. You were telling us a few things. You were telling us, uh, about how bowl biologists got started. But one thing I didn't get to ask you is, how was your first experience with cannabis? At what point did you know, this is something that you wanted to deal with on a full-time basis?
As a business.
Right, right.
Yeah, it was after that experience that I described before, where I'd taken a long hiatus and smoked again, and sort of realized that it was a different product. I looked at it different, right? I had
Mhm.
tried it 20 years earlier as a kid, and it was just fun, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm trying it and having a really amazing experience. It's changing my life. And I had already sold my business, so I'd kind of decided right then and there to start doing the research on how I can get in the industry.
Mhm.
As I told you guys before, unfortunately, living in South Carolina, my prospects were a little limited, but at least I still had some kind of access, and that's why I decided to go the CBD route. Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, you said something that was super or important that stood out to me. You said you tried it when you were younger, and then some
Yeah.
years later, when you were, more of an adult, you tried it, and it was completely different. And I think, for me, that was what hooked me as well. I had a buddy when I was 16. He got me to try it. And I tried it. I was like, he was like, oh man, you just ain't doing it right. So I tried it again. I gave it a few fair shakes. And
Right.
at that point in time, I know I was like, nah, this ain't for me. My mom
Right.
was always totally against it as well. So I was like, I ain't messing with that. And he respected that. Fast forward a little bit later, he passed away. Um, and then I went through a bad breakup. I say bad, it wasn't that bad, but anyways, but it always seems bad when it's happening.
Right in the moment.
Right. So I went through a breakup, and then I go home one day. My sister was smoking a joint. And I was like, damn, my sister's younger than me by a substantial amount. So I tried it, and it was different. I was like, man, what in the world? This ain't what I tried before 10
That's
years
right.
ago. And just the fact that it was so different, it intrigued me. And I just went down a rabbit hole, researching, seeking out information. And once I stumbled across the endocannabinoid system, that just blew it wide open for me.
hmm
So you said that you had did research for about 6 months um, or so. Like, what was it in your research that you saw that you just immediately knew, like this? I know this is what I need to be
Honestly, I saw that the industry was an industry. It wasn't just, it wasn't black market. It was real. There
doing.
was there was a whole supply chain of industry happening, and not even just in certain states in the US, but all over the world, right? Things were
hmm
starting, dominoes are starting to fall all over the world. And I said, this re-engineered product, engineered to sort of get you a certain feeling, whether it's focused or happy or elated, all these different feelings. I said that I've got to get into that. This is something people need. It's something I want. I know other people are more open-minded these days, and I thought it was basically time to do it. But really, to answer your question, the fact that there was a somewhat established industry and supply chain, and I just knew that if I studied it, I could identify the place where I could fit in.
Right.
Yep. And
Awesome.
that was key.
Awesome. Okay. So you come up with this company, Bold Biologix. Tell us a little bit about how you came up with the name. What's the meaning behind
Sure. Well, I wanted something for athletes, right? I told
it?
you.
Hmm.
So and I wanted to I just I love that word bold, like fortune favors the bold, right? We all know that
Mm-hmm.
saying. I just love that. And if as an entrepreneur, even as an elite athlete, right? If you want to be at the top, you got to take chances, you got to take risk.
Oh yeah.
So that's that bold part. And then the biologics part, I wanted people to know that this was based on science. It was based on data. I wasn't just throwing, stuff up on the wall and seeing what stuck. I was going to companies doing chemical analysis, uh,
Hmm.
mixing different ingredients to see what was best, what felt the best on my skin, what actually helped with pain the most, what helped with anxiety, which products helped me sleep the best. So I wanted it to be a data-driven company, and that's sort of where the bold and the biologics came together ultimately.
That's super dope.
Um, I actually have a question. Do you feel like doing that research and all the analysis and looking into the statistics of everything came from um like a transfer of skills, so to speak, from your previous career that you had?
Yeah, 100%. So I was fortunate enough in my previous company, we grew pretty fast. We grew the business to over 100 million in revenue. And I
Wow.
wore multiple hats. I've been the CFO, the COO, the CIO, the CTO, basically every hat that you can think of. So I ran payroll. I did everything in HR. I did logistics. I ran every department at one point. So
Hmm.
that, you could say that I'm what is it? What's the term? Master of none.
Oh,
Uh,
jack of all trades.
Thank you, jack of all trades. So, although I think I've mastered some of those, but that's another point. No, but I really having that diversity of training, I think prepped me to do this because I knew all these different places where I had to look and make
Hmm.
sure that I had my I's dotted and my T's crossed.
Gotcha.
Even contracts, right? Reading through contracts.
Yeah.
I don't know how many thousands of NDAs and TAs and all these kind of agreements that I've signed over the years, but that prepped me for this to be a sort of solopreneur. Because otherwise, you're doing something like this, there's a lot of risk. I didn't have to hire a lawyer, I didn't have to hire an accountant. I was able to do everything myself.
Mhm.
Wow.
So that was a big part of it because you don't just get that knowledge and expertise. You either have to
Hmm.
go to school for it or learn it, OTJ on the job.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or partner with someone in the fact that felt confident enough and were able to like pinpoint exactly what you knew and bring it into this new realm that is, like you said, unregulated. You're going to be talking to a lot of people. Some people aren't going to be the best people, but
Right.
with that experience that you have had, it seems like it led you to the path that you wanted to fairly I guess fairly confidently. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I felt good about it. I felt like I had a lot of business acumen and a lot of experience enough that I could start this and make it work. And frankly, going to MJ BizCon, I met a lot of great people, but a lot of people that didn't have that experience. So I felt like I had a bit of a leg up. I just had to
Hmm.
get out there and get in the market.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a really great point for anybody watching this. Wanting seeing how they can get into industry, trying to figure it out, trying to find their lane. I think, just what your skills are in your current job or your current industry or what you've previously done. I think taking that and getting in and finding your niche and finding how that works. I think that's where you need to start. That's a baseline because it just makes things easier. Uh, you know, you can kind of streamline into it.
Yeah, you got to get an inventory of your own self, right? What are you capable of? What do you know? And then figure out where the gaps are and fill them with other people or with education.
Right.
Mhm.
Like
Okay.
I had a gap, right? I had a gap on the on some of the science side, which is why I went and got my master's degree in medical cannabis science and therapeutics. I realized that I didn't know a lot of the science behind it, and I wanted to know that so I could explain it to any of my patients. I wanted to be able to explain exactly to them on a cellular level, if I had to, what's happening when they use my product. And so that was a gap that I had, and I filled it with a master's degree.
Yeah, that's really important. I mean, to be able to convey to your patients. I'm glad you said that. I think
Yeah.
word choice is extremely important, especially when you're trying to destigmatize all the stigma that has been associated with cannabis. But I think that's really important to have that. For you to even think that way, to take that next step to get that education, because a lot of people that we're seeing, trying to get into this industry, just because there's money being made, there's $20+ billion being turned over in this industry, and it's federally legal. And so that's very important. And I feel like a lot of people, they just get in and they're just looking for a buck. They're not, trying to be a part of the growth of the industry.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the people that are successful not only are driven by making money and being successful and all these other things, but we want to be part of the change, right? We want to see in my lifetime, I want to see this become federally legal, and I want people to start looking at people that use it as patients and looking at it as the product as medicine, right?
Right.
And that's a big change, right? But it starts with the insiders like us.
100%. Larry, you said you had 4 products.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit more about the products that you formulated.
Sure. One I knew would be, but I'll start with the most difficult one first, which was the bath bomb, because I realized that not everyone has a bath, not everyone's going to be able to use it, but if they could, and believe me, I've used mine plenty, man, I use it before sleep, and you're out. It puts you out. It's a big dose. It's all over your body, right? So instead of being like a roll-on or a cream that you apply to a specific area, when you're dipped in that bath, you're getting it in your whole body, and so you're absorbing a lot of the CBD, probably a lot more than other products, by doing that route. And so I thought a lot of athletes, especially elite athletes, will do the post-workout baths. So that was the reason why I went with the bath bomb, and because it's extremely effective. I can talk about the roll-on and the cream together because they're both topicals. The cream is more for long-term pain, like a chronic pain. Like if you have a chronic pain in your shoulder, but it's not like acute in a specific area that you can pinpoint, but it's just a sore shoulder, that the cream is going to be made for that. You can apply it to the whole area and you're going to feel relief. Whereas the roll-on is for a very acute specific area. And that one literally works within 60 seconds. You're going to feel the reduction in pain within a minute. The cream will take a little bit longer. And then my tincture, I realized I had to have something that, where when you put on a topical, it's focused on a specific area. The bath bomb covers the whole body, but it's penetrating through your skin. I wanted something that was ingestible, so you could do it from the inside out, right? So it's getting into your bloodstream and affecting your whole body. And so that's why I created that. And it's basically reducing inflammation. That's the primary thing that the CBD is doing. And what that causes is, for a lot of times, you're going to be pain-free and also less anxious, right? Because it's hitting those CB1 and CB2 receptors and causing both of those things to happen. And so I had seen a lot of products out there, a lot of tinctures. And in the case of mine, you'll see, I don't know, 800 milligrams, 1200, 400, 500, right? Kind of the standard range. I knew, again, for athletes, it had to be a dose that they could feel a little bit quicker. So I packed mine with 2000 milligrams of CBD. And I think it's, anybody that's used it knows it's pretty effective. And especially for long-term use, you're just going to be, you're less swollen, right? You're going to be, you're basically going to feel better. And CBD also promotes homeostasis. And I don't know how, you guys have heard of it, but not everybody knows what that means. When I speak to my patients and friends, the way I describe homeostasis, it's almost like the equalizer in music, right? So you have music that plays at it sounds perfect when you set the equalizer up, and that's your balance. That's you as an individual. That's where you belong. You get hurt, something happens, and it throws off one of those things. Well, CBD helps bring you back to that natural state where you're at, where you perform best. And that's kind of how I explain it. And CBD does that. It brings you back to that normal, optimal level for you as an individual.
Okay, that actually kind of brings up like a question that I did have. It was
Sure.
along the lines of like, what have you felt was the biggest learning point for your customers when you're educating them about, your products? You have an extensive knowledge of like, THC versus CBD.
Oh
Do
yeah.
you feel like just explaining that was alone was like a big enough task, or do you feel like you had to explain more about the endocannabinoid system to kind of bring that home in referring to homeostasis?
That is tough. That is a tough question to answer because no, seriously, because it depends. You hit on all of those end up being questions that I get,
Yeah.
right? So is CBD the same as THC? Like what? So you have to explain that these are chemicals. They're all part of the same plant. They all are, come in different amounts in the plant based on the strain, based on the chemovar, all these different things. So I think for the earliest generation, the biggest thing was to explain and educate that CBD wasn't intoxicating.
It's
That was
non-psychoactive.
that
Yeah.
was really step one.
Yeah.
CBD is not going to get you high. It's not that kind of supplement. It's extracted, right? So you start explaining that process, and then it finally makes sense. But people don't really know the difference between, for example, hemp and cannabis and marijuana. That it's just a legal term, right? They don't know that. Most people don't know. So to answer your question, it's not one thing. I think it's a total education. It's everything.
Yeah.
Got
Yeah.
to hit on all points, because if you just hit on one, then you're leaving something out and they still might not get it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that I ended up taking a course on regulatory affairs of cannabis. So the first part was history, and the second part was like the policy
Yeah.
and understanding the history and how like it what they called marijuana was portrayed for so long, like having to unlearn and relearn that stuff, even for like myself, was a huge eye-opening experience. And now
Yeah.
understanding that, like, there has been a lot of research on this that we just don't know happened because they destroyed it all. So, there
Right.
is that education out there, but it's going to take people like you and us to really help everyone else understand like what the difference is, and this isn't something that was created in a lab per se, that is a chemical imbalance, but it's supposed to help you. Like, no, this came from the earth. You know what I mean? So I always love to ask that kind of question. Like, what do you feel like was the biggest point of educating for your customer base? Sorry. And then I guess that would kind of jump into my next question
Sure.
is on your website, you speak about what were the 5 core principles that drive Bold Biologix products, and I was wanted to ask you, how did you home in on those 5 per se?
Well, like you said, right, the first thing that I mentioned was the science, right? I wanted it to be data driven. And
Yep.
so in order to do that, I had to do my research, and I had to make sure that the first thing is that the cannabis itself was responsibly sourced, right, through sustainable means.
Mhm.
So working through my supply chain and asking them all those questions and going all the way back to the beginning for them was important to me. Um, the other part, which we always talk about, right, is the COAs, the independent third-party lab testing. That's required if a CBD is coming out and starting e-commerce. You know, they'll try to push that and get them to do that, but not everybody does it, right?
Right.
I didn't care what everybody else was doing, frankly. I was like, they can do it or not do it. I'm going to do it because
Yeah,
I want that. I want to know that I'm putting a safe product on the market, right? And I want to know
Right.
that it's effective.
absolutely.
So I did that. And I mentioned before the good manufacturing, GMP,
Yep.
right? That's a huge one, because I think if you hold them to the same standards that we hold anybody else, like, you know, whatever cereal you ate this morning, you know, the manufacturer of that, whoever made that, had a GMP certification, I guarantee it, right? So
Mhm.
we want to make sure that our products are manufactured with the tightest regulations so that it's safe for the public. Um, made made in the USA, right? That, to me, honestly, that's
Yeah.
a big one. It's not, I'm not I'm not sending stuff overseas and getting,
Yeah.
you know, Chinese parts or this or that. I want to make sure that every part of the product was here in the US. And then I guess the last piece, the last pillar is the performance engineering. This is where in all my products, I was directly involved in coming up with the all of the ingredients.
Okay.
I tested multiple types of ingredients and worked with the senior chemist at all these places to actually come up with my formulation, not someone else.
Okay.
Right.
And so
Wow.
that's what I mean by performance driven, right? Performance engineering. I was directly involved in the science of putting this together. So yeah. So those are the five pillars that I kind of run my business on, and my brand.
I think that's really amazing. Especially you know, performance driven, because you, as and going back to like how unregulated it is
Mhm.
and how easy it is just for, you know, someone to just slap a label on something and like send it out there and just try to like recoup whatever money they invested, maybe even before they start looking into different ingredients, or even if they're just going to run with the show that they already started. That I feel like is a very large standout point for businesses that want to do it right, that want to make sure that they're giving somebody a quality product, and that they want to build their name and make sure that, you know, anytime you think about Biologix or any other company that is as passionate as you are, it's like, yeah, like these people care about their product and they want to make sure that we're getting the best. Because I can tell you that, you know, my dad started using CBD topicals on his knee after he had his second knee surgery, and he's like, man, this only lasts like 5 minutes, but it's got like 5,000 milligrams on the label, and it's like,
Ah,
I'm like, I don't
right.
even know, I don't know why you're buying that. Like, you like, don't buy that from Amazon. Like,
Right.
you know, let me figure something out. And even like, I even tried, you know, I grew my own CBD plant and I turned it into a topical for him, and it was like 10
Nice.
times better than what he bought on the market. And unfortunately, I didn't have the, you know, the power or the know-withal to like go and have it tested or figure out where I could get it tested. I didn't have that. So, you know, I just knew what I was growing and how much care I put into it, the ingredients that I put into like feeding my plant. So, you know, even though I've had like a small glimpse of understanding, like, you know, how you do your performance driven product and ingredients, I definitely understand that like you got to really care about your product for someone, for even someone to feel the effect that they need to feel when they're using it.
Yeah. Well, how's anybody else going to care about your product if you don't?
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah,
I want people to use it and get relief. You know, I want that. I want these to be for therapy, for performance, for recovery, for results, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So,
That's
yeah.
wonderful.
And I've actually used the bath bomb. And I must say the bath bomb is hey man, I'll just say this. I ran the water, dropped the bath bomb in, and started sizzling, and sudden immediately I got in the bathtub. No, probably about 10 minutes later, I probably took about a 15-minute nap in the tub.
First time I used it, I fell asleep in the bathtub.
Yeah, yeah, same. So I got out, and I just felt like a sense of calm.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, that's a good product there.
Yeah, I'm telling you, not everybody can use it, but it is very effective.
Right.
Sometimes too effective.
Yeah, I will attest to that for sure.
Right on.
I had my last question was, is there a brand, and when I say brand, it could also be like, you know, for lack of a better way to say it, like an influencer, but there are people, you know, that actually like have their own cannabis brands and stuff like that, like the Viola company, the Cookies company, Khalifa Kush company, like those people have their own brands and they actually work on their own products. Is there a brand or a company that you would like to collaborate with to you know, bring Bold Biologix out more and really kind of kick that window open so everybody can really get a good look at it?
You know, it's you're gonna probably be surprised by my answer, but so I had gone to this website many times for supplements, right? And you'll pick it up real quick. It has the same colors as my brand. It, like, a lot of the things match up. And so when you go to, and it's also the BB, bodybuilding.com, which is a great place to get supplements for athletes. And I was looking at that website going, man, that's the one. If I could get, and they don't have any CBD products yet. And I said, if I could get with them, I mean, the BB, the colors, like everything it works. And I think if I could convince them that I'm a good brand for their product, I think it would really take off. So yeah, that is the one that I've always had at the top of the list, right? That's like the one I'm gonna get.
Yeah, that's super dope. Wonderful. That's super dope. I'll say I got one more question too, and then you know, we can kind of conclude and wrap it up. You talked about early in the interview, you talked about being bold. And you talked about, you know, as athletes, you know, or somebody who, you know, is going to be successful, you have to be bold. You have to be willing to take chance. And I feel like as athletes, that's even more true because you have to bet on yourself. That's and right. You have to do things that other people haven't done, and you got to kind of go that extra mile. Who is an athlete that you always kind of looked at and you looked at for inspiration, you know, when you were, you know, competing?
Well, growing up, it was always Michael Jordan for me. Right? I mean, like most people, yeah, absolutely. Michael Jordan was the man. Guy never gave up. Guy was always clutch. He always put in the work. I mean, you hear the story about him, even what, you know, right? And he was didn't make the basketball team in high school as a freshman. By his senior year, he's freaking tearing it up and gets, you know, goes to UNC. He's at UNC and he makes that amazing shot in the tournament, right, as a freshman. So yeah, I always looked at him and admired him and thought that dude will do whatever it takes to get to the top, to get to a win, even if it means pissing off your teammates, even if it means doing something that cast a bad shadow on you in the public. He was willing to do anything to get a championship. And I think that's kind of the mindset that, like you said, that athletes have to have. If they want to get up to that level, that's the kind of bold behavior that they have to exhibit to make it happen. So yeah, that's Michael Jordan would definitely be the man.
Hey man, I like that. I think you might have coined something for yourself. That might even be a segment or something that you can have like a bold behavior. I like that.
Right?
I like that a lot. That's super dope. But yeah,
Well,
it's ironic that you say that, man. I was watching Air last night. I
there you go.
finally finished it. I've tried to watch it a few times and fell asleep, but I watched it. And, just when you look at the story of how Nike signed him and look at Sonny
Oh, yeah.
Vaccaro was very bold in, going after Michael Jordan. It's crazy to, you look at now and what is, and, you see that story, you kind of see that insight of, damn, this dude he really saw what was coming. It was a
Yep.
lot of foreshadowing there.
And like you said, he had to be bold because he had to step out of line and put everything at risk. Because if it had failed, he was done.
It was over with.
It was over. So, but
Yeah,
that's the only way you get to that level. You're constantly you have to take risk, and
yeah,
sometimes it's pretty freaking scary. But
yeah.
that's the only way you climb that ladder. Nothing's going to be given to you on a silver platter, right?
Right.
Business.
Hell no. Hell no. All right. Is there anything that you want to, let the audience know that we haven't covered? Just speak on that. Tell the audience where they can find your products and
Sure.
what your next steps and what they can look forward to from both biologists.
Yeah, I think the next steps are we're going to focus on some women's products actually.
Mm,
There's still very few female focused, especially for athletes, products, and one of them is suppositories.
mm,
Um, and my girlfriend's a longtime nurse. She also got the master's degree that I got, and
mm,
it's trying to be in the business and helping me out with this. We realize there's a major gap there. There aren't a lot of products for them, and there's a lot of need. There's a lot of
right.
need. There's a lot of more need for education. So I think that's a major route we're going. And the other, BJ, I think I've told you this before, is I want to be. I don't necessarily want to be the guy that has a big presence in the U.S. That there's a lot of competition in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided I speak Spanish. I'm from Puerto Rico. I'm gonna take it down south, go to Central and South America, and start to grow down there. Start to introduce it down there because it's a little more nascent, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not as developed as it is here in the U.S. And I found that in a lot of these countries, the people are much more open to
Mm,
changing that. Whereas you said you studied history, right? The whole
mm.
war on drugs it's a American thing that we
Oh
push
yeah.
to the rest of the world that most people don't know, and that's fine. But they're more willing to back off of that sort of mindset.
Right.
And so I think from anyone looking at this from a business perspective, you have to be able to look outside the box, right?
Right.
I'm not doing as well as I want here, so where can I go? What can I do different? And be able to pivot and be nimble. So
Yeah.
that would be my advice on the business side. The only other thing I would say is people need to study the history of cannabis. If you don't know,
Mm-hmm.
study the history because there's a lot of race, ethnicity, all of that
Mm-hmm.
played into the history of how we took cannabis and made it illegal. Most people don't know this, and if I'm sharing this for the first time for your audience, I love it. The fact that Nixon had two commissions study cannabis, and he wanted recommendations back to him on whether they would classify it as a Schedule 1 drug.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Both commissions recommended that it should not be scheduled. It should not be that highest
Yeah.
level of illegal. Maybe it should be governed, but not like it is today. And he ignored it. He went out on his own and did his own thing.
Yeah.
And I just think people need to understand the history of it to understand why some of us are so passionate about it today.
Right. 100%. I
Yeah.
think that's a very, very great point. It's a very great point. So tell us where we can find your products.
Oh, sure. Yeah, main place, go to boldbx.com, my website. We'll be in, anybody going to Ecuador will soon see our products in the pharmacies down there, but in the US, it's pretty much direct to consumer on my website. You can find us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, just search either Bold BX or Bold Biologix. I'm trying to look for the handle for you now. Didn't have it up. Well, I think the handle is just Bold Biologix on Twitter and Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just Bull Biologix on
Yeah,
Instagram.
with an X. Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Just for you, quick for you, hop off, Larry. I'm not sure if you probably have. What's this bold? Why is this
That
not?
looks familiar. That
That's
book.
about
It's
the
the cannabis and medical practice.
Yep.